Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing question 3, and the question is, what have you learnt from your audience feedback? I'm Connor.
I'm Anna.
I'm James.
First point. Okay.
So this was from one of the beginning shots. Connor's standing in the middle of the 4 mirrors, and Connor's actual body, not his reflection in the mirror, is swaying too much and moves a little bit too much, which kind of takes the focus off what's happening in the mirror. So his other reflection, which is what we want the audience to focus on. So Matt Fenton said this, that Connor was swaying too much and he was focusing on Connor's actual body rather than the reflection.
I thought the guy that wasn't supposed to be moving moved a bit as well.
Yeah, okay. So what, that person needs to be still if we're going to do that again?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So it was distracting him. So when we refilmed it to make it better, we made sure that Connor was standing very still on the exact same spot, no swaying or anything, and that improved it.
So our next point was from Louise French in our audience feedback evaluation, and she said there was a bit of a jump in the music.
There was one bit where like the music like kind of jumped, like for a second. I don't know if that's like in editing or something, but
so we had to cut down the music originally because the song was a bit long and we didn't have enough footage to fill it. And at one of the points where we overlaid 2 audio clips, the jump between the 2 was a bit jittery and the beat didn't quite match up. So when we came back to the editing after our audience feedback, we made sure to sort of fade the music in and also continue the beat so there was less distraction. And I think we achieved a pretty solid transition between the 2 audio clips, sort of seamlessly merging these 2 sound bites together and continuing the song as if nothing had changed. So that was really good actually.
Another point that was brought up was from Bethan Tinker in the audience evaluation feedback. Like with Louise, she said there was a bit of a cut and that the black gap was too long at the beginning.
Obviously you've got that black gap, haven't you?
yeah.
To like fill in, yeah.
So the way in which we did this was we cut the music down, and this ensured that the music flowed smoother. The black gap, for us personally, we kind of thought that the song was a bit too long at that current stage in time. So by reducing that 30-second gap, it kind of helped the action to flow smoother, and it kind of jumped from one scene to another, making sure that the plot and the narrative continued better.
So another point that was brought up in our audience feedback was that the legs were showing in the mirrors, the legs of the mirror stands, and it sort of broke the mood a little bit of the beginning cup scene, because it was a sort of embodiment of what the character was feeling. So it was sort of this black space that we were trying to achieve, but the legs kind of stood out on top of the mirrors, so it sort of broke that mood and that sort of downbeat theme. So we sort of listened to some of the feedback that people gave us. One person suggested about the black sheets.
Do you think the chair legs were a bit tacky? Like the mirror legs that you can see in the reflection. Do you think we need to cover them up?
Yeah, I think you could cover them up because sort of just through watching it, I think sort of they did look a bit sort of there and kind of ruined a bit, because I kind of got into it a bit, but it's kind of they're there, so it was kind of taken away from it. So I think if you cover them up or sort of zoomed in a bit more, I reckon it would look sort of a lot nicer than it does at the moment.
Covering the legs?
Yeah. There was personally approached all of us when we were watching the clip, and said that with the black sheet that would kind of help match the black atmosphere behind, so the shadows, and so by using that will help cover up the legs and create more of a realistic image. I think we all felt that with the legs we were kind of seeing the constructed image rather than the way in which it is constructed rather than the actual image we wanted to create like a realistic split personality.
Yeah.
Anna, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, there was also points when because of the legs, the mirrors didn't quite connect well together. So when we were filming, Zach and I had up a black sheet between the gap, which then made it all kind of linked together more, and it didn't look fake, and it actually looked like it was happening, and so I think that helped.
It made it look a lot more realistic and a lot more professional. I kind of thought it was a bit tacky being able to see the actual mirror legs themselves, so by using that audience feedback, we improved on this by getting the black cloth. We kind of positioned the mirrors closer together.
Yeah.
We always had that as a bit of an issue.
And sort of moved chairs as well out of the way, so there wasn't anything reflecting back into the camera that you could see in the background. So there was a couple of chairs in the first shot, and that black cloth that was put in between the mirrors definitely helped. You could see right through it beforehand. But in the actual end cut, we managed to sort that out. So.
And also, what referencing to what Anna was saying earlier, by making like a cross on the floor where you stood exactly in each shot, so that it didn't look out of place and it wasn't swaying.
And so when it came to cutting the scene in the edit, we knew exactly where we would be, so we could merge the two clips together, and we'd be comfortable he was sat in our right place, so we wouldn't cut him out or anything. So yeah.
We also got some further feedback from Tom Thompson at the start of the course when we did the practice sequence for the mirrors. Tom made a really good point that the characterization wasn't really up to scratch, and I think we could have improved better on the way he looked, possibly the way he acted. So I generally think that Thompson's advice, you see it now.
After watching the video, what do you think could be improved in terms of his characterization?
I think sort of overall it's pretty good. Apart from, I think sort of the costume could do a bit more distressing. So I think sort of it could look like there's some rips in it. Looks a bit scruffier. Sort of basically make him look like he's actually been through something rather than just looking like he's throwing on a shirt.
That's good. So what do you think? By more distressing, more rips, more.
Yeah, I think sort of if there were some more rips in it and sort of like the button was something undone and there was some blood on it and things, it would add sort of the plausibility of it and things, also make it a bit easier to understand sort of what he's been through with these shots and sort of overall in the song.
Yeah, no, that's good, that's good. We've got one more question as well with regards to makeup under his eye.
Okay.
I mean, do you think it's not really showing in the video, the black under his eye?
I think with sort of the black and white filter in it, I don't think it is shown particularly well, but I think sort of if you sort of made it a bit darker and sort of pushed it a bit more and sort of put some more effect into it, I think it could show up slightly better, but I think it's also partly the filter might have a bit of an impact on that.
And do you think possibly more black under his eye to make it look like he's bruised?
Yeah, I think that would actually help, because sort of then the makeup would become a lot more plausible and sort of it would show out more, so you'd also sort of notice it a lot easier than having to actually look for it specifically.
Thompson's advice on certain things like changing the shirt and ripping it, or what?
Yeah, so we, first of all, when we came to do the first shot, we kind of ruffled it up a bit in a couple of cuts, but it didn't really look realistic. So when we came to the actual shoot, we added more rips in the front and the back, kind of all around.
Dark nail polish, which was kind of to look like blood on the shirt, like blood splatters.
Ruffled it up and crumpled it and chucked it around, stamps on it, all adding to that sort of aesthetic and the mise en scène of this character who'd obviously been through a lot, and we wanted to make it as believable as possible. So the audience are sort of open with questions to begin with. So yeah.
I think personally it's quite hard to show off just through acting someone who is mentally unstable. It's got to be the costume, it's got to be everything, and I think Thompson's advice was really helpful, because it kind of helped us to progress in ways in which we could make him look more realistically unstable. And I think ripping the shirt, the varnish, all those things helped to the overall video, and helped with the narrative.
So in after our rough cut audience feedbacks, Jack Tooley talked about how he had a suggestion that we didn't agree with, but he said that to make the relationship sequences in colour to show that there's a happier time. And
while he's with his girlfriend and he's happy, maybe that could be a bit in colour.
In colour?
Maybe, and then when it all starts to go wrong, then it could be in black and white.
Whilst this would have been a bit too much of an obvious visual metaphor to cut away from black and white in the depression scenes, we felt he had a good point with making the colour sort of brighter. So we looked at sticking with black and white, but changing the tonal contrast. So adding more contrast in the sort of downbeat, more heavy-handed stuff when he's sort of depressed in the park, and then with the handheld footage and the video stuff, we sort of brought up the brightness and added a bit more of a grainy footage to make it look like it was a sort of film grain almost, and that definitely did show in the final cut. And you know, with our editing skills, when we came to upload it at the end, you know, you could definitely see a difference in mood, and whilst it would have been too obvious, I think, with colour, we stayed with the black and white, and I'm really glad that we did, and stuck with that whole colour scheme throughout, but just made that distillation a bit more obvious. So yeah.
Yeah, no, Tooley's point was really good. I think we, at the start, I remember you said, you know, it needs to be a bit more in colour and it's a bit too dark in points. So yeah, by showing that contrast, Jack helped us to, you know, make it more realistic and more happy. So that was a very good point. Hello everyone. Anna had to quickly leave, so me and James are going to finish off this evaluational video. We've got a couple more points that we're gonna bring up now. The first point was with regards to the digipack. We felt that through, you know, the audience feedback that we had obtained, that the digipack didn't really reflect at that current moment in time with, you know, the 3 split personalities. We didn't feel that that was really reflecting the genre, which is alternative.
Yeah, sort of electronic. Yeah.
I remember Jack Tooley in the audience research. You know, he stated that for, you know, a digipack to be successful, it needs to really like reflect the genre, and he made a good point that maybe making the digipack a lot more colourful, because he said maybe it was a little bit, possibly a bit bland.
Because at the moment the photos that we started with were just photos, and we sort of edited them in black and white sort of filters, but there wasn't any kind of anything more than that really. So we looked around sort of electronic and alternative music artists' sort of albums, and I think one of the big inspirations was Disclosure, who, you know, they heavily hand in sort of electronic stuff, and their sort of highlight outline of the shapes, and it's you know, very visual, and it's very representative of their style, and that's what we decided to go to, not completely copying, but sort of sticking with that outline highlight of contrast between black and white, and then adding sort of the yellow text as well. Definitely really helped on top of that to highlight those things.
I definitely thought with what people were saying about our digipack, you know, it really does stand out, and it's really eye catching, I think. And it's not something that's really used by that many people. I know Disclosure use it, but it's something that's quite quirky, and because, you know, Jack Garrett's beat, you know, in his music,
it's off. Yeah, it's really alternative and really kind of not conventional music, and the fact that he uses a lot of different sounds and stuff is, you know, not something you'd usually hear. So we wanted to match that with something that you wouldn't normally see, and that catches your eye or catches your attention.
And we represented that in the digipack.
Yeah, and I think another point was that sort of what we had, the idea we had originally, that I think definitely carried on, but was supportive of the audience feedback, was sort of continuing the theme of the video. So obviously it's sort of representing a crime scene in the digipack, you know, with the knife and the numbers, and I think definitely with the filter to begin with in black and white didn't really do it enough justice to use it as a digipack, and then adding that sort of highlight of to like stark contrast and the streak of white on top of the shirt, you know, really kind of made it stand out and added to it a lot more, and just made it more visually interesting to look at. So yeah,
I think as part of our audience research, their feedback really helped us to come up with these ideas for, you know, with the white outlines. And I think in particular with the white shirt on the back cover, you know, at first the white shirt, it kind of just, you know, it was a normal white shirt, but with this, it's right. It really, we felt, really made it look a lot rougher, and it just looked a lot more, you know, disturbing in that kind of respect. So, you know, electronic music represented in our digipack, you know, it's quite fun with some of the colours, but also at the same time shows off kind of like that serious edge, that sinister edge through the back shirt and how that looks.
We're also looking for like a sort of an X-ray look as well, wasn't it? It was all sort of very technical and a bit like electronic music is, you know, very sort of computer based and very, you know,
with all like the symbols and stuff flashing.
Yeah.
So a point from that is that our audience responses to our digipack saying it needed a bit more colour and a bit more eye catching, that helped us with the progression of our digipack, and thus, you know, helped us, you know, produce a product that is what our target audience wants.
So we're looking at sort of our final cut now and the final version that we edited and uploaded onto YouTube. And one of the points that people really enjoyed about the video was the ending and the reverse effect, in which this was heavily influenced by Alt J's Breeze Blocks music video. Obviously that's the whole video in reverse for the murder, and we wanted to replicate that in a certain way, sticking with that alternative or electronic genre, and I think the audience definitely enjoyed that. They definitely liked the pre-build-up and the hype, and sort of wanted them to continue watching, and hopefully we'll encourage them to watch it again, as it's a visually striking and somewhat confusing storyline and narrative, so it'll make them want to watch it again. And that's what we were trying to go for, something that can get a viral hit on our video and make people want to kind of share and tell their friends to watch. And that is a really big hook, and that reverse scene took a while to plan out, but definitely was worth it in the end.
Our murder sequence, I think, personally, I think it's very unconventional. It's not the kind of thing that you see every day. And I think that kind of met the demands of a lot of our audience feedback. There were some feedbacks that were saying possibly, the slow-mo reverse was a bit jumpy at points, possibly it didn't flow as well. But we made sure, and what we took from this advice is that we made sure that when filming, we ensured that everything was done down to the final T. The movements were smooth, the knife going back into the hand was smooth. So I think without that audience feedback, we wouldn't have been able to really get an opinion on what they thought of the slow-mo reverse. So I think what they were saying positively about our slow-mo reverse, really helped encourage us to edit it more.